In the beginning, 3 girls were made. Horse girls, wolf girls, mermaid girls. But they were, all of them, deceived. For another girl was made. Forged in secret, a girl to control all others. And into this girl was poured all cruelty, all malice, and a will to dominate all life. The Dragon Girl. Hi everyone, I'm Willowares, and today we're going to be talking about the most iconic bosses of all, dragons. And honestly, this is a video I have been dreading for my entire career. Dragons are the perfect boss. However, there's one particular dragon baddie that is such a letdown, especially in comparison to its counterparts, and as a dragon girl...
And I can't stand him.
And I can't stand him.
So let's break down dragons into an easy digestible handful of gems, and see if there's anything we can use to create a cool big bad dragon boss. And don't worry, if you're a player, I've got something for you too. So obviously we've got a lot of dragons. Every color of the rainbow, every semi-precious metal, every member of Captain Planet's Planeteers has a corresponding dragon. D&D actually has 3,512 different types of dragons. So let's take a look. You can break dragons down into 3 main branches: true dragons, lesser dragons, and dragon-likes, or dragon-adjacent kind of dragons. Anyways, the category we'll be focusing on is the coolest one, true dragons. Alright, so let's run through the familiar ones super quick. So you got your 4 big families of dragons that tend to chill in the prime material plane, you got your 3 that follow a specific god in the draconic pantheon, you got your chromatic, your metallic, and your gem. They may not always get along, but they're family.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Ferris dragons don't have a deity. They just follow their big boss, Growl. Chromatics are bad, metallics are usually good, and gem dragons mostly sit in neutral. Ferris dragons are lawyers. Most dragons have their claw or rend attack, their famous breath attacks, which in general stack up to about 2 separate kinds, give or take 1 or 2, and most importantly, a tactician's intelligence on the battlefield. Outside of these 4 groups, you have a lot of other options that tend to stray a little further from that basic formula. You got your planar dragons, your catastrophic dragons, your epic dragons, like time dragons.
She is very gorgeous to me!
Basically a dragon for every day of the week, every day of the year. Let's run over some of the lesser known ones to see if there's anything we can snag for our new big bad. The first dragon we have coming up is technically an aberration, but he's half true dragon, and you know us around here, we never forget family.
No matter where you are, whether it's a quarter mile away or halfway across the world, you'll always be family.
So let's throw him oh my god. Oh my god, that is the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. The Elder Brain Dragon is, you guessed it, an Elder Brain possessing the body of a dragon. Different than an Elder Dragon, by the way. Those guys are just mind flayers mixed with dragons. Still gross, though. Please don't get me wrong. Besides being a face only a mother could love, it elevates the Elder Brain monster by giving it more mobility and switching out the traditional dragon breath for a salty brain tadpole mist that can infect whoever it touches, turning them into mind flayers. A combo of 2 iconic baddies, this is an amazing design. A-. Catastrophic dragons are the result of true dragons turning away from the classic dragon gods, pledging their loyalty to the primordials. Think of them kind of like the Titans from Hercules. Because of this, even though they are true dragons that age, they're usually made of elements. Earthquake dragon, for example, is made of rocks, and you guessed it, he can cause giant earthquakes. He belongs to a small club of true dragons that lack a breath weapon completely, usually a pretty standard thing in the dragon kit, but that's exchanged for phenomenal seismic power, the ability to level cities, and absolutely decimate a landscape. B+ for the lack of dragon breath on this guy, but he's a really cool monster regardless. So, I have a confession to make. I have a bias. I love chronomancy.
The greatest magic of all. Do you remember?
Is friendship.
Chronomancy!
Chronomancy is by far one of the most lore-breaking, mechanics, headache-inducing, and overall the most, quote, you didn't actually punch me because my character already saw it coming and he's super strong and he actually teleported behind you. before you can even unsheath your sword, unquote, type of magic ever. But gosh darn it, I love it. I love how it looks in games and movies. I love how it breaks everything it touches. And if I could choose one superpower to have, it would definitely be time related. I don't care if I butterfly effect my entire universe just to have a cool floating golden clock above my head for 5 seconds. I do not care. I love it. And there is an entire dragon dedicated to time. The time dragon. Just look at how beautiful the art is. The colors, the shapes, the presence. I think this is my favorite dragon design ever, and rightfully this guy has been sidelined because time dragons are just super freaking powerful. Unless they're killed, they live forever. Their breath weapons can consist of aging until you die ray and basically a baby banishment ray, which is crazy. In fact, it's heavily implied that an aspect of the draconic god of death, Null, is a time dragon named Chronos. I would never want to fight one of these guys. They're one of my favorite creatures in D&D. Great boss. Beauty, lovely, precious. I love. Another category true dragons can slot into is a sort of transformative category. Forgotten Realms calls this the draconic transformations. For example, you have hide-carved dragons from all the way back in 3rd edition. The Draconomicon for 3.5 details hide-carved dragons as one of the potential prestige classes a DM could have a dragon take. Quote, their name comes from the markings engraved on their scales, which grant them incredible mystical protection. Dragons of hive-carved order resemble monks in their strict discipline, dedication to personal perfection, and mystical transcendence. Unquote. It tracks that since dragons are so well-versed in magic, many with innate spellcasting, etc., then they would be able to slowly build up more magical resistances. Basically, hide-carved answers the questions of what if dragons hung out at the mall together and were super into body modifications. And now, well, they aren't in the new monster manual, so you know what that means, folks. They all died. I'm totally kidding. I'm just kidding. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Fizban's Treasury of Dragons furthered the idea of loths. That's the name that a group of hide-carved dragons called themselves, where they all tattoo each other and work towards a common goal. Though, once again, these guys are usually shaped under the premise that they're good dragons, resembling monks and all, so motivation factor bumps them down to a C+. Now, I know I said I wouldn't go over any from the Big Four family, but I can't really pass up the Belduril dragon. As far as I can find, no official stat block on these guys, but the lore is something interesting that I really want to include in my monster making moving forward. For those that don't know, Belduril is a rare gem that's used in spellcasting, arcane craftsmanship, and finally, disgusting displays of opulence. Think of it as an energy sponge that can redirect things like heat or electricity, vibrations, and spit it back out. Except you don't squeeze it, I guess, because it's a stone. The Belduril dragon usually nests near veins of this gem, and utilizes the stone's arcane properties to act as seismic coffee filters so they can sip up earthquake juice, because that's what they eat. Ground shakes. Ground shakes.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Other gem dragons definitely have some relations to their gem in an aesthetic sense. Say their layers will be laced with whatever, or their breath damage type matches the gem's color somehow, but the Belduril dragon has a more, I had to look this word up, common solistic relationship with its namesake stone. They need it to feed, so it makes sense that they live near deposits of it. They borrow the theme of having an arcane focus as well, and their breath uses the specific energy absorption and redirection that the stones do. And also, like the stone, they are incredibly rare, which, once again, makes sense. Don't you love it when rarities of certain beasts are specifically called out in the world and make sense? I'd think they'd be a challenging sneaky situation. Say your party wanted to snag a bunch of arcane items or research the dragon is hoarding. But as far as big bad evil bosses, they tend to avoid conflict, so I'd give them about a C-. And finally, the best dragon in all of D&D, Wishes the Fairy Dragon. Great dragon, leaves coins all over Waterdeep under people's pillows like the Tooth Fairy, and I don't know, he loves musical theater, so we're not gonna discuss combat because you should not fight him. Shout out to Wishes. He's never let me down. A+++. I mean, he's a terrible boss. He's D- boss, but sorry, Wishes. I love him. I love Wishes.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. It's perfect.
wishes.
That's perfect!
So where can we improve with dragons? The ultimate D&D monster, the peak boss that sits comfortably at the crossroads of power, intelligence, and overall aura. Something with enough HP and damage that hits like a truck and by all accounts should have the same amount of tactical prowess as any player at the table. Well, I mean, we can point out where one of these dragons has fallen a bit short. Okay, so there's a single type of dragon that just grinds my gears. He really just puts me out, and that's the Draco Lich. So a quick primer on liches for the uninitiated. Liches are beings that aspire, or are forced to be, forever undead by undergoing a dark magic ritual that spits in the face of nature. You usually need 3 things to be a lich, and these are all baked into lichdom like a gross rotting pie for balance and lore's sake. 1, you need bodies. If your body is destroyed, you get a new body. 2, you need phylacteries, some sort of container or containers for the original soul. Some can even 3D print a new body for some types of liches. So if the party destroys these, you're toast as a lich. And 3, you need some kind of life force to maintain this spell periodically. So you gotta go out and kill more stuff. That's why people want you gone in the first place. These 3 things feed off of each other, making liches fantastic bosses. It's motivation, power, and weakness, all baked into one. And you'd think that would make Draco Liches the best boss ever, but while the Draco Lich is a super cool, scary monster, I'm not convinced that he's the perfect big bad. Let me explain. We're gonna look at the stat block from the most recent monster manual, and cause there isn't a how to make a Draco Lich recipe in here, we're gonna go by the previous manual to fill in some gaps. From a mechanics point of view, I have no problem with the Draco Lich, so we can set that aside. But there's 2 points that initially stick out to me. Okay, number 1, Draco Liches have to be ancient or adult, otherwise the ritual just straight up kills them. And number 2, the adult blue Draco Lich from the previous manual is now just the Draco Lich. That's kind of a bummer to me, understandable because it streamlines the monster manual a bit, but I did like the idea of a Draco Lich holding on to some form of its in-life powers, for example, keeping one of their breaths or something. And hey, it's D&D, we can do anything, we can still do that. If you don't want to go into balancing him again by adding another breath, you could certainly keep flavor bits, like maybe you can still see the color of his scales as they rot off or something, but it always sucks when you forget family. Family. But that's not the biggest problem I see. I call this the Dragon Factory problem, and there's probably a better term for this, but essentially, we have to suspend our disbelief that a very rare, if not finite resource, in this case, dead ancient or great worm dragons, is suddenly readily available. Now, I would never assume a DM would make a party fight a lich like 5 times, but part of the terror of a lich is that, well, I mean, hey, maybe you could. That's why it's important to break the phylacteries, because there's always going to be another body a lich can bamf into. One of the key cool moments that can happen when a party fights any lich is when they kill the body but forget to smash the soul jars, and the lich can say something like, "You have defeated me today, warriors, but I will rise again, stronger than ever." So that should follow for a dragon, but I kind of find it hard to believe that a dragon has a backup fridge of another 10 or so dragon corpses. The Draco Lich phylactery isn't called out to be able to recreate a dragon body either. If we live in a world where ancient dragons and great worms are rare, which, gosh, I sure hope we do, it stands to reason that there's a good chance the Draco Lich doesn't have another Eva ready to pilot just laying around. And to be completely fair, there are some ways around this issue. There's some versions of Draco Lichdom where a dragon can hop into another dragon-like creature, but how scary is a Draco Lich that's in the body of a medium-sized worm or kobold or whatever, who apparently has the memories of the kobold but really wants to eat whatever's left of the old dragon body, and somehow that fixes it. It takes a literal bite out of Draco Liches from a lore perspective, for moi, personally. The other resource you'll need is souls, and there's a lot of hints and side notes in D&D lore that suggests a dragon soul is way more chunky than a human one. Dragon souls, become mountain ranges and stuff. D&D literature has entire separate sections just dealing with what happens to dragons post-mortem. It's a big deal. So do we maintain it by killing more ancient dragons, thus making the Dragon Factory chug even more? We sacrifice 10,000 non-dragon souls a day a la Warhammer, which, I mean, okay, admittedly, that is actually really cool. They had a good theme going there, so kudos to them, but my point still stands. I can't really find a whole lot about Draco Lich maintenance post-transformation in the literature, outside of vague mentions of necrotic magic, so the upkeep on this guy has got to be insane. Dragon souls, to me, feel a lot more powerful than, say, a human lich. Human liches have been described as munching on larvae like popcorn to sustain their life juice, but also needing regular human sacrifices to keep their phylacteries humming. And maybe it's the logic side of me, but I feel like in order to maintain a powerful dragon soul, you either have to be killing younger dragons all the time, which loops back to the Dragon Factory problem, or just sidestep it somehow, which, once again, takes the bite out of the Draco Lich, because if he ain't killing and can just be evil in his cave by himself, then who cares? The Dragon Factory problem can be applied to a lot of things in D&D. Everyone in the party is a half dragonborn, half Asmar, half drow raised by goblins. That's a Dragon Factory. Your airship needs to run on a supply of mithril socks. That's a Dragon Factory. And if you think you're running into the Dragon Factory problem, just ask yourself these 3 questions in order of increasing importance. Can we suspend our disbelief? Is it cool? And most importantly, are my players still having fun? Because at the end of the day, if Godlight Dark Shadow Scalesworn wants to pilot the mithril guzzler and everyone is still having a good time, just let them have a good time. And you know what? You can actually quote me on that. D&D should have some limits to cool stuff to let stuff be cool. Unless the mithril guzzler needs to fly and everyone is still having fun, then that's okay. Willowares. And finally, putting the Dragon Factory metaphor aside, dragons are just really proud and a lot of times somewhat vain.
He's big, too.
At the very least, stuck in their ways. Remember seeing Answer the Undead Dragon in Baldur's Gate? Or Onsor? I kind of forget how his name's pronounced. I don't even think he's a lich, he's just somehow undead, but it was so sad to see this incredibly proud creature who had obviously been tricked somehow. And while he was super cool, it doesn't feel great to kick a guy while he's down just because he got tricked. And by the way, I totally didn't get tricked by the Emperor. I don't even know who he is. Never been tricked by him. Nope. Draco Liches work really, really well within the framework of the Cult of the Dragons because there's a lot of trickery and convincing these dragons that they want to turn undead and playing on their greed. But outside of that, feels like they wouldn't be very interested in coming back as their own rotting corpse, much less hopping over into another dead dragon. So what can we do here? Of course, we can bend the rules of Draco Lichness, but I think the want is to have some kind of undead necrotic base outside of Beach Barbie Topaz Dragon. And we want the undeadness to better serve the dragon's nature. So let's find a way to keep his body intact, or at least intactable. We want him to be smarter than a skeletal dragon or a zombie dragon. Maybe he doesn't even have to be a lich, but we could still have some kind of delicious and chunky, long transformation process that the players could sink their teeth into. And looking at our lesser used dragons here, I think we can maybe borrow some traits as inspiration to satisfy those needs. And I wish it could be a time dragon. Oh, how I wish I could put a time dragon in every video. You overpowered, magnificent being you. I wish D&D was only about time. I wish I was a clock. Oh, sorry. Let's move on. I think hide-carved and Beldril dragons focus on a draconian trait that can absolutely lend itself to a creepy undead boss, and that is the relentless pursuit of magic. Dragons, creatures that already are very magically gifted, spending their long lifetimes, which are very long, on magical studies absolutely opens them up, in my opinion, to unlocking some pretty crazy capabilities. They're basically buff, nerdy grandpas that have all the time in the world to amass their limited edition coin collections and read, so it would track. In addition, the dragon soul and body is something so powerful, so expecting a different post-life process that it's not only believable here, it's already established. So let's throw this into the soup. Same rock and bod, long magical process that makes sense using our big draconian brains, and just for fun, a delicious dragon cult to throw in the mix. So let's see what we come up with. In a time almost completely forgotten, there was once a dragon who terrorized the land. His hunger for wealth was unlike any other, and some even claimed he would only eat flesh adorned in gold. It is said that it was not a blade, nor a great spell that could slay him. After each battle, the dragon would spend days casting strange spells that twisted the verdant lands around him into cold barrens, each time becoming stronger. In fact, the only thing that finally felled him was time itself. When the people realized his wings no longer darkened the skies, they bravely ventured into his lair to find a slowly rotting corpse. Beneath his flesh and skin shone veins of pure gold that had replaced his marrow. His greed molded into the very carcass of his being. Even worse, it seemed the dragon had figured out how to carve runes into his very bones with magic. Most didn't dare look at the terrifying lattice of dark power on the dragon's corpse. Yet his intense hatred lived on, molded into his very bones as the gold had, longing to consume. An unlucky adventurer seeking his fortune attempted to pry some of the gold from a single bone, but the moment he touched it, his flesh and soul were ripped asunder, binding it to the stolen prize and turning it a ruby red. The people looked on in horror as they slowly realized it was in fact blood, and it was pulsing. His bones had turned into a pile of white scales, shivering and shaking on their own, trying to reform. Try as they might, the bones could not be destroyed completely, only splintered. Even then, the bones had a mind of their own. If placed placed next to each other, the splinters would reattach, as if slowly trying to reconstruct itself. The wizened leaders of the people ordered the dragon bones to be scattered throughout the land, worried that some dark force would attempt to one day reunite them. Now, there are whispers of two groups, those who have descended from the very wise leaders from long ago, promising to keep Marrow from ever returning, and one, a cult of insatiable greed, who replaced their limbs with gold and worship trembling fragments of bone on ornate bloody altars, whispering dark promises of endless power. Much like the cult of the dragon, the servants of the Marrow are a group hell-bent on bringing about the return of their evil dragon overlord. Unlike the cult of the dragon, who seek to create Draco Liches, the servants have one singular goal: to reassemble the skeleton of Marrow. The servants have figured out how to use fragments of Marrow to unlock unnatural strength and magical prowess in the interim. Most prefer to embed the shards within their skin, allowing their own life force to be leached away by Marrow's greed. Some, however, have figured out how to fashion parts of Marrow into weapons of awful power, weapons that hiss and whisper to their wielders, convincing them to never rest until all is whole once more. They always travel in groups of 3, in case one of them is absorbed by the bone itself. The party, if they encounter a servant, should be wary to show their whole hand. If a servant is able to get away, they will report back to the others of the party's strengths. This should encourage your party to vary up tactics, spells, but also keep watch for one of the 3 servants splitting off to escape. Woe to the party who cannot stop the resurrection of the Marrow. But, I mean, come on, you're here for a fight. A necrotic-based ancient dragon that has special resistances. Marrow is a boss that is all about the waiting and watching game. Decisions that your party makes during battles leading up to him allows him time to carve the resistance to certain magics and spells into his bones. Marrow is divided up into 3 major parts: his head, his body, and his tail. If the party manages to prevent one of these aspects from recoalescing, Marrow will be an easier fight. This sliding scale can be up to the DM, of course, but it's a neat idea to give the party a feeling of kinda accomplishment, but also fear while they fight a headless Marrow who is using his excess blood to create a floating fake head that can haunt their nightmares. Now, I know what you're thinking. Willow Bears, I'm just so excited about Marrow, but I'm just a player. I can't play Marrow. I just wish I could put him in my pocket and carry him around, but unfortunately he's too big and he's too strong and too cruel. To which, hey, I say you can, because I've crafted a very special Marrow blade just for you. A legendary item that, okay, maybe you can't fit it right into your pocket, but certainly you can put it on your back. So check it out. Ooh, so it's so bloody. I've baked in some of the Marrow's power into this guy, so use it at your own risk. And wow, hey, that's it, we did it! Dragon Tales. We finished the video, Dragon Tales. One freshly cooked rotting dragon for your consumption. And for free, that's for the price of free, I've put the stat block for him in the description below. That's right, giving him up for free, something that the Marrow Dragon would absolutely hate. And I've thrown up the Marrow Blade on Patreon if you're interested as well. That's also in the description below. I also have another big bad video about a creepy plant lady if you're into that kind of thing. If you like this kind of stuff and want to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And finally, thanks so much for the folks who organized Dragon Week. I had a lot of fun coming up with this idea, and I hope you all learned something about some lesser known dragons. And if I missed your favorite dragon lore tidbit, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear about it. Oh, and if you've had your very own Dragon Factory problem, tell me how you solved it. Make sure to check out the other Dragon Week videos, and see you next week with my next video. Bye bye!